to the world. Maury, are you okay? Hey there. Hey, Maury.
He wasn't expecting to hear a voice because he is the last survivor.
He truly is the last survivor. See, as you can see from the chat, we fooled all of you. You guys thought we were actually dead. Nope. Just Maury's just playing a trick on all of you. Maury is the one true
Is Maury's face clean? Are you clean, Maury?
Maury's.
Should we tell Mom that she's on the air or not?
No.
I know that I am.
Yeah, you know.
Is your face clean? Is it clean?
Maury's always clean.
Oh, boy.
Hello, everyone.
Makeup.
Welcome to the 5th MIQLAT Hangout stream. We're not all dead. The world didn't end. But it did for Maury for about 5 minutes. What a majestic creature.
Great. We gotta. I don't know. I guess Mom wasn't on the camera fooling with Maury's face, but she was on camera.
Mom,
with your
do you
hair.
want to come down here and get on camera? Yeah, that's figures. Dad, you gotta. Here we go. Everything's fine. How are we sounding? How are the
Why
mics?
is he shivering? Are you shivering?
All right. Well, tuck him in a little bit
tuck
better.
him into his little blanket. It's really cold here.
That's why we got his blanket on him. He needs his sweatshirt or his sweater.
Do you want your sweater, Maury? Huh? I think he wants to be with me.
There's this dude in chat who just typed in like shouty caps. Pugs rock, except when they get older, breathing issues. Why would you put that in all caps? I'm very confused. Oh wow, what a pug. He's not on screen right now. So, Dad, what's the agenda today?
The agenda today is what it always is. We're just going to kind of invent it as we go.
All right.
I do have to respond to this Packer treatment. Go Pack.
Go pack. You know what my favorite pack is?
What?
2-pack.
Oh, that's really funny.
I'm a comedian.
So, I don't know. Is this his name? A troll hunter with a wrench?
Yeah, troll hunter with a wrench.
Okay, because I can't really distinguiw the color of.
Yeah.
They're both like gray.
I mean, the eyes are the first to go, so
Yeah.
it's like.
Oh no. my name on the view is like yellow.
Yeah, but like other people's names are just gray.
Why does my name have a crown next to it?
Because you're
Like,
the
what's
host of
that?
the stream.
Oh, okay.
It's like the host account.
Anyway,
King of the
why
universe.
the Packers? Well, they just grew on me when we lived in Wisconsin. So I grew up a Cowboys fan, but we happened to live in Dallas during the 88-89 football year. And that, for some football fans will remember, that was when Tom Landry was fired because Jerry Jones took over the team. And that pretty much did it for me. The way Landry was treated after how many decades of being there was just ridiculous. I actually remember it. You know, if Roger Staubach had not still been a Dallas resident, they would have done nothing for Landry. Staubach was really behind getting the city to have a parade, you know, for Landry to say, you know, thank you. So that wasn't on Jerry Jones's mind. So that was it for me.
Sports.
Yep. I didn't really follow anybody until we got to Wisconsin, and the Packers just kind of grow on you. You know, when they do ridiculous things like hold a team meeting in the stadium because it's a publicly owned team and the fans own the team, and they've got 40,000 people in the stadium, and they put a microphone in the field and ask if anybody has questions. Nobody does that anymore. It's unique in sports. So there are a lot of reasons why the Packers just kind of grew on me, but yeah, I'm a Packer fan now.
You know.
And have been for, I don't know, what is it? We moved here in 2000, probably 20 years now. So
We got Scott Harper, a viewer from Scotland.
yeah,
I just thought that was
he's
neat.
from Scotland.
Yeah,
How do you know?
because he said he was from Scotland.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that part. Yeah. Yeah, it
Or at
was.
the very least, he's viewing
My
from
problem with the
Scotland.
Cowboys wasn't so much Jimmy Johnson; it was Jerry Jones. So Jones just handled the if you can call it a transition.
What's
just
with these
terribly.
names? Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones.
It's a travesty that Jerry Jones is in the NFL Hall of Fame for what? I owned a team that won a couple Super Bowls. Well, like, let's just put every owner in the Hall of Fame whose team won a Super Bowl. I mean, that's just stupid.
He gets in because of alliteration.
He gets in. I'm sure he had to, bribe somebody to get special treatment there. Well, I know the Bears still suck. The Bears always suck. So that's just the way it is. I don't look at the Bears like I looked at the Cubs. I wanted the Cubs to win. I don't care if the Bears ever win a game.
The Cubs are special.
Yeah, they are. The Cubs made the playoffs this week.
Oh, they did?
They did. They
Imagine if they win
clinched
2
the
World
playoff
Series in a row.
spots. Yeah, I don't expect them to do that.
By the way, for those who don't know me, I don't care about sports at all except for the Cubs.
Brett Favre lives next to your church. Wow. See if you can get him there. I mean,
can we get Brett Favre on the stream and put him where Maury is?
That would put him where Maury.
Yeah.
How about have him hold Maury?
Okay, how about this? Like if we ever have a third person in, right? It's gonna be like a guest spot, and the guest spot sits over there, but he holds. Maury's swaddled up like a baby.
He holds Maury like a baby.
Yeah.
No, Favre was one of the most fun players I ever saw. He was just crazy. He was just a lot of fun. Yep, you're welcome, Ra Lovingsworth. Let's put 34,000 Packer owners in the hall. Yeah. There we go. That would be the perfect comeback. The perfect Jerry Jones one-upmanship right there. That would be perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Hey, we should repeat
the
contest thing. So
no, hold on, I got it.
you got it?
I got it over here.
Because I was gonna say I could go back to my website because I put it on the website as well.
I have it in the description of the stream,
All right.
as well as the description of the other streams we've done since the announcement. So let me just repeat this.
So let's do that while we're thinking.
So Mike is doing a little bit of a book giveaway. He's giving away 6 copies, 6, right, of your new book. And what's your book called?
The Bible Unfiltered.
The Bible Unfiltered. See, Maury, I mean, you guys can't see it, but Maury.
Oh, man, you got to get it on
excited.
camera. You got to catch this on camera.
See that? Maury, do your little howl thing. Do your little howl. Let me move the mic.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, Maury? How you doing?
I think we're keeping him awake.
That's quite an achievement.
What is up, dude?
Maury, get some lighting in there.
No, don't. Yeah, he doesn't need any more light. Is he cold? Is he shaking?
I think he looks like he's angry. Oh, there he goes. There he goes.
All right, he's assumed the position again.
All right. Anyway, what were we saying before we got distracted, like children?
No, Bible Unfiltered.
Oh yeah, Bible Unfiltered. Giving away 6 copies of it, and basically, there's a bit of a giveaway. All you need to do to enter the giveaway is to leave a review of Unseen Realm on Amazon, or edit an existing review to update the timestamp. Once you've done that, take a picture of the review, either with a screen cap or with your cell phone or something like that, preferably a screen cap, and then email it to calvinheiser@gmail.com, along with your mailing address. Books will be signed by Michael Heiser and Maury if you ask for it. I'm probably gonna have him sign them anyway. The deadline for doing this is October 3rd, and winners will be announced on the live stream on October 6th. I'm gonna pick 2. Dad's gonna pick 2. Maury's gonna telepathically pick 2. It's gonna be great.
That's right. We're gonna see his powers. His powers will be on display.
No human has ever witnessed his powers in a live stream.
Not on the live stream, yeah.
But Maury does crazy things.
Unseen World says, "All hail Maury for deflecting Nibiru on the 23rd." That's right. Maury held up both paws.
He's still on his hind legs.
Right.
Paws straight by this guy.
Yeah, he held up both paws and diverted Nibiru on the 23rd. See now, but now Maury gets to do it again.
Really?
Because I've heard the giant intellect, who came up with the 23rd.
Who's the giant intellect?
No, I'm not going to give out any names here. I don't want anyone to
give
go to his
a
website.
name.
No.
Okay.
That generates web traffic. We're not about generating web traffic.
Okay.
Web traffic first.
But Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Yeah, Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
No, now I think it's October 19th. So we get to do this all over again.
Maury's work is never done.
We get to show our prophetic powers again. I'm going to predict right now. This is the date. This is the 29th. I'm going to predict again that the world will not end on this new date. Yeah, I think it's October 19th.
What if North Korea just launches the nukes on that date?
That wouldn't end the world either.
Yeah, but like, what if it happened?
Well, no matter what happens, he'll come up with another date. So like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. So we might actually be able to film Maury exercising his powers.
I agree.
Holding up the paws and diverting Nibiru. I think we should capture that on film so that he gets the credit he deserves.
What if he sees us do it?
What if he sees us do it?
Yeah, because like he can't. He's asleep right now.
No, we'll sneak up behind him. Boy, I'm wondering how anybody can hear me if I didn't have the mic down here.
I'm sure they could have heard you. No one complained about it.
Yeah, nobody complained about it. Maybe they would rather listen to Maury and you than me anyway. So.
Well, Troll with the Wrench just says that they just ordered the book. That's perfectly fine, but you won't get it signed by him. You won't get it signed by a pug. So
that's all right.
So
I mean,
think about that.
They can still enter the contest and maybe get a signed one. So
They just have $2.
yeah, well, give the other one away. Give it to a friend. But no, we really do need to capture Maury saving the world. I mean, because again, he needs to get credit for that.
You ever seen the end of Independence Day? It's
Yeah.
like way cooler than that.
Yeah. Well, I think the world just needs to see Maury in action.
Vincent Artail Jr.
Mhm.
I probably mispronounced something in there. Said way better than Yoda.
Way better than Yoda.
I agree. You know my favorite Yoda is? My favorite Yoda is the CGI one in the second prequel where he just like flips around and destroys all semblance of his character. That's my favorite
I remember
Yoda.
watching that in the theater, and when that scene came up, everybody just started cracking up, and they weren't supposed to. Like it was supposed to be a serious fight scene, and
It's supposed to be like this.
then
battle.
this puppet starts flipping all over the screen. Everybody was just dying, man. That was great.
I feel everybody was dying is a pretty good description of the prequel trilogy.
Well, how do I go up in this? Okay, I got to click here.
Yeah.
I know you told me how to
Arrow
do this
keys.
last time.
Arrow keys is the most convenient way.
Yeah, but okay, there we go. Well, my arrow keys are unresponsive. There's no surprise there because they're my arrow keys. Yeah, I don't know. There was a question up above, and I can't recover it because I can't scroll anywhere. Yeah, I just don't have any scrolling or arrow keys. There was something about recommending teaching or something in Northeast Nashville.
They want me to zoom in a bit. Let me adjust.
Yeah, and I don't know any either. I saw a response come up here.
There
Yeah,
we go.
put a pug saber in his hands.
Not a lightsaber, a pug saber.
Maury actually doesn't need technology.
Maury is technology.
Yeah, he is technology. Maury can handle this all by himself. But that's a good idea. That's a good thought.
Apple's new CEO walks on stage just with like
Makissa
Maury in his
01
arms.
said she didn't know any in the area. I guess I would just recommend generally. Again, I'm not familiar with the area either, but I guess you could try, Calvary Chapel Church. I mean, they tend to gravitate toward, verse by verse
Dad,
exposition. So
Dad, I'm hearing the audio of the stream through your laptop. You should mute the.
yeah, let's do that. Let me go to the button here and I'll mute it.
See, you guys didn't miss out on the technical
There we go.
Parts. We did mess up at least once. That's our guarantee.
All right, we have here. Yeah, the Unseen World says the prequels were awful. Oh my, awful doesn't begin to describe them.
There's one thing in the prequels I do like.
The end?
General Grievous.
Oh, General Grievous was okay. Yeah,
He looked cool. I thought.
but he couldn't possibly redeem the prequels, really. I mean, when you have dialogue like, the teenage or whatever, however old he was, Anakin saying to Natalie Portman, your skin's smooth, not like sand. Okay, that's inspired dialogue right there. I mean,
Your skin's smooth, not like
like
sand.
sand. It's just like, come on.
This water's wet, not like tree bark.
Right, not like not like the
That's
surface
so
of the sun.
bad.
It was terrible. The whole and Jar Jar was an insult, to any thinking human. It just
Jar Jar was a Sith Lord. I know you don't want to admit
look,
it, Dad.
the only thing I wanted to see in the later movie was just to see Jar Jar get killed.
Jar Jar's dead body is in one frame of the Force
I've
Awakens.
heard that, but where is it though?
I don't know. I didn't look it up.
All right, well, that'd be worth looking up. So
let me just continue spreading these rumors. You know what would be good for the next
Okay,
hour?
we're getting some good input here about the church situation in Tennessee. Yeah. Episode 1 was released on Laserdisc, though. Is that a positive thing? I mean, I'm thinking
Coming to your household soon on Laserdisc.
Yeah, I'm thinking more positive would have been they would have just refused to distribute it, but yeah.
In a perfect world, the second prequel movie would have just been 90 minutes of George Lucas weeping and apologizing.
Yeah, here's a good comment. The love scenes seem to be written by an alien who had heard how humans fall in love. Yeah. Yep, ditto. Okay, all right, so this McKiss is in Houston.
Sand.
Yeah, I'm out of the loop. Okay, well, again, I would try at least. I've only been to Nashville. Well, I've been there twice, but basically I've seen a hotel, a hotel and a Waffle House. That's typically how it goes when I travel anywhere. So I don't know, but I would be thinking, try a Calvary Chapel church.
Is there a Waffle House around us?
Vincent says, "Hey Mike, I'm gonna be reading the book When Souls Had Wings. What are your thoughts about the book?" Yeah, I've recommended that before. For those who don't know, this is an intellectual history. It's a pretty dense book. It's an intellectual history of the subject of the pre-existence of the soul. So it goes from like antiquity all the way to the modern era. It's written by Terry Givens, who is a Mormon, as I understand. But don't let that dissuade you. What he's doing in the book is again chronicling the history of thought on this. So I mention about the Mormonism because somebody will find out he's a Mormon and say, "Oh, it's biased." Well, it's an intellectual history. It's a history of the idea. I think the real payoff in the book is the discussion of the church fathers, the early church fathers, and they're going back and forth over the pre-existence idea. Origen eventually gets condemned for this, and he's declared a heretic, and then he's like undeclared a heretic later, and all this kind of stuff. But what the book really shows, I think, well, is that all of the major church fathers that weren't declared heretics by somebody else, they all had some position, positive position, affirming some view of pre-existence at one time. Like Augustine came down in a positive way on the issue, but then he changed his position. Those chapters really show how the church fathers at times arrived at their positions not through exegesis, but in response to ecclesiastical debates of the day and ecclesiastical politics. So I think those chapters alone are worth the price of the book. It just gives you a little insight as to what was going on in early church theological discussion. They weren't out there, debating the details of exegesis in many respects. They were responding to things and sometimes responding to each other. So that alone makes it worthwhile, just so you get a glimpse of that.
Quick shout out to Micah, who texted me.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching the stream now.
Oh, good.
I think his family is too on the couch.
Yeah, Dina, I said Calvary Chapel. Again, Calvary Chapel churches tend to focus on verse-by-verse exposition. So if there's one in the Northeast Nashville area, I would say check it out. You might find something that's worthwhile there. But again, that's just I've had exposure to maybe 4 or 5 Calvary Chapel churches, and they all try to make that their focus. So that's kind of an educated guess. I'm just not from the area, and I don't know anything specifically.
Dad,
Yeah.
can I show the viewers something?
Yeah.
Maureen, one of our friends, sent me the video of...
Oh, you got to see this.
Yeah. I was going to download it onto this computer and then play it, but I forgot
I think
to
you
do that.
should cover Maury's ears, though, because it's going to go to his head.
No.
Maury has what would we call Jamie?
Jamie is...
This fan doesn't quite cut it.
Oh, crap. It's on super low resolution because I have an Android phone. Let me quickly... this is good.
Well, you have an Android phone because that's what you wanted.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like, when you send a video from Android to Apple,
Yeah.
if it's just through SMS, the quality goes down. If it's through Snapchat, then it's fine, right?
All right. Well, you got to put this on.
Micah, quick. I know you're listening, Micah. Send me over Snapchat the video clip of Jameson freaking out over seeing Maury on the screen. Send me that immediately.
Yeah.
And then once you send it,
Yeah.
I'll
What's
play
the
it.
official correct pronunciation of Augustine or Augustine? And I said it that way. I've heard both. It's kind of like Logos and Logos.
Logos was better. Fake
know.
Life is a bad name.
Yeah, I know. I like Logos better too. But I was, you tend to use what you learned at your first introduction to this. So you'll hear either pronunciation. So I don't think it really matters. I've heard professors of church history say it both ways. So I don't think there is any one specific answer. But yeah, if we can get that video of Jamie.
Oh, we need to show it to them.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So we have family friends, and Micah is my friend, and they have parents. One of the parents is Maureen, who I mentioned earlier, and they have a dog named Jameson. This tiny little, what breed is Jameson? Shih Tzu or something like that?
I'm not sure. No.
No. It's not
like
Shih Tzu. It's
Cocker Spaniel or
something like that. It's small and super fluffy.
Yeah.
But not like Pomeranian fluffy. It's like mop fluffy.
Yeah.
Right? Like Jameson looks like a really old man.
Anyway, this dog saw Maury on TV because somebody had the live screen on their TV.
Yeah.
And the dog's reaction is just.
I can't spoil it, but it's great.
That's crazy.
But I've been sent similar videos of him freaking out when like there's cats on the TV. Like he looks behind the TV to see if they're behind.
Yeah,
the
well,
TV.
see, you're spoiling it
It's
now.
great. I mean, that's not what he did in the video. At least not the one I got.
Okay, all right.
But it's great.
Yeah, Makissa says, Mike, please give us your best shot at what was happening with the sun event in Joshua 10:13. Was this an event horizon? I have to know a little bit more about what you mean by that specific term. That you realize this question is essentially asking me, Mike, how did that miracle work? Short answer is, I don't know. I don't know how that miracle worked. There's two ways to parse this, and there's probably a little bit of truth here to both of them. One is, that this was a miracle. This was a supernatural event where God, had the sun stand still for X amount of time. And again, if it is a true miracle, then God takes care of the, quote unquote, physical problems that would extend from the miracle. Okay, that would sort of be part of the miracle, that God takes care of all that stuff. We don't need to look for, the sun to like speed up later and make up for lost time and all that kind of stuff. And I know there are people who argue that, but if it's a true miracle, then it's a suspension or an intervention of the normal physical processes of the universe. And by the way, before I get to number two, that's what a miracle is. Okay, a miracle is the suspension of that which is normal, especially in regard to the operation of nature. It's not a miracle that I get a parking space at Target. Okay,
Thank you for saying that.
And people tend to denigrate the real quality of miracles by calling things that are not miracles. Of course, the most infamous one is it's really not a miracle when a woman has a child, childbirth. I mean, that's spectacular, but to be honest, and I'm always waking up to
the Lifetime
her
Movie
childbirth.
Network told me it was.
But the reality is that women successfully have children because their bodies are functioning the way God designed them to function. And we can look at it in our experience, it's a spectacular thing. I like the word spectacular. I was there for the birth of all my kids, and trust me, it was spectacular. It's astonishing. I'd use words like that, but it's not the suspension of natural law. Okay, it's not the intervention to do something unnatural in the natural world. Okay, but anyway, I don't know why I got off on that rabbit trail. The second way to look at it is there are. If you look at the account in Habakkuk 3, I'm just going to go over there because I actually have access to my laptop now.
Yeah, so you can look up anything you want.
Yeah, let's go to Habakkuk 3 because this is another accounting or a retrospective on the Joshua event. God came from Teman. This is verse 3, Habakkuk 3:3, starting there. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. His splendor covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light. Rays flashed from his hand, and there he veiled his power. Before him went pestilence, and plague followed at his heels. Now, I need to stop and note something. Pestilence here is dever in Hebrew, and plague.
Pestilence means like disease or something, right? What's pestilence
Normally, yes. Plague is reshef, both of those terms are actually names of gods, names of deities in the Canaanite pantheon. So the idea here is that the gods of the Canaanite pantheon are not on par with the God of Israel. Essentially, they're little flunkies that follow his heels. So to keep that in mind, in verse 6 it says, he stood and measured the earth, he looked and shook the nations. Then the eternal mountains were scattered, the everlasting hills sank low, his were the everlasting ways. You keep going, and you get to this, let me see if I can find specifically here. Again, a whole series of sort of, pretty miraculous events. Your wrath was against the rivers, O Lord, was your anger against the rivers, your indignation against the sea. Verse 10, the mountains saw you and writhed, the raging waters swept on, the deep gave forth its voice. All these things when, God is marching to Sinai. And then we hit verse 11. The sun and moon stood still in their place. At the light of your arrows they sped, at the flashing of your glittering spear. You marched through the earth in fury, you threshed the nations in anger. You went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. You crushed the head of the house of the wicked, laying him bare from thigh to neck, so on and so forth. Now, some scholars would say, well, since we've got Dever and Resheph mentioned here, sun and moon, Shemesh and Yareach in Hebrew, these are also deity names. And so they would say, again, maybe this is a reference to the subjugation of lesser gods. And since you could read it that way in Habakkuk 3, they'll go back to Joshua 10 and say maybe that's the point of the sun standing still. In other words, the sun is supposed to be doing its thing, and the God of Israel has control over it. He doesn't literally stop the sun, but what he does is he defeats the power of that deity. And the same thing for the moon. So there would be some who would read Joshua 10 as kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, spiritual warfare. And, to be fair, some will do that so they don't have to address the issue of a miracle. Again, I don't think that's at all necessary. I mean, if, God being who he is can do miraculous things. But I think there is something to the idea that there is, spiritual warfare, God's victory over other gods in Joshua 10 going on. So that's why I said there's probably a little truth in both. You could parse it both ways, but I don't have problem with the miraculous. Let's see. In what area of biblical scholarship would you suggest Protestants look at the work and research of Catholic scholars?
Dad,
Yeah.
before we get into another question, I just want to announce that we are almost at 70 viewers.
Oh, okay, good.
I just felt like saying that.
I would say it depends on why you're looking. I mean, if you're looking, hey, what do Catholics say about X? Well, then you should look at Catholic scholars because, that's, again, cliche, but that's from the horse's mouth. I mean, you can't be accused of caricaturing someone's view if you're quoting someone who actually holds the view. Now, if you're just saying, hey, I'm curious about XYZ topic or XYZ passage, again, if it's a Protestant looking to see what Catholics think, are you looking at what Catholics think to change your view, or you just want to be informed? So that there's a motivation there. I think more broadly, though, I mean, there are certainly. Let's just take Richard Clifford as an example. Richard Clifford is a scholar of Israelite religion, and he focuses on cosmology, but his big area is wisdom literature, like Proverbs. Clifford is a Jesuit. He taught, I'm trying to remember where, taught at the Weston School of Theology I don't know if it's in Boston or a city near Boston. And I can't remember where he got his PhD. Maybe it was Harvard. His dissertation on the cosmic mountain was published in Harvard Semitic Monographs. But I like Clifford because again, he's sort of an outside-the-box thinker. I just enjoy reading him. So, I would read him for those areas, wisdom lit, cosmology. He has a really nice article on Phoenician religion that's really, really good. I mean, he's done a lot of good things. So it just depends, if he's a, biblical scholar. Mark Smith, I don't know if Mark Smith I guess he's a practicing Catholic. I mean, I know he's Catholic, and he taught at St. Joe's for a while. Maybe he's still there. I can't remember. I get it mixed up a little bit. But let's just say he's a Catholic. Well, he's an expert in Ugaritic stuff and Israelite religion, so yeah, I'm gonna read him. So it just depends, I think, on what the point of the exercise is. Mike, when it comes, I lost it now, and again, since I can't. Oh no, wait, now it's working.
Yeah,
Mike, when
audio went weird for a moment. The reason that happened was because last time we did this, we had these picking up the audio, and I accidentally went to one of the presets, but that was it. I just said it's fine.
Joe said audio went whack. Okay, I was talking about my scrolling, but Mike, when it comes to things that could be possible but are not recorded in Scripture, what do you say to people that say it isn't in the Bible? Okay, I need to think about the wording of that question. Honestly, it's kind of hard to figure out what you're actually asking there. If it's not in the Bible, you can't really biblically evaluate it. I really don't know what to do with the question. The wording is kind of confusing. I don't think possibility is a good hermeneutic. I'll try to address this a little more broadly. Like when I go on Coast to Coast AM, and George, of course, wants to talk about the Anunnaki aliens and stuff like this and ancient astronauts, and he's like, but it's possible, Mike. Isn't it possible that this could mean that? And sometimes he'll throw Bible stuff in there. And the one time I was on, I said, well, sure, George, it's possible. It's possible that I could be the next American Idol, but I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, I guess in where all these things are possible in multiple worlds and universes, yeah, Mike could be the next American Idol, but let's not hold our breath. So possible doesn't mean much to me. Plausible is a much better way to approach things. Plausibility asks you to think a little more carefully about what you're thinking is possible. It's possible that Maury might grow a second tail. He could get close to a nuclear waste dump or something. I mean, you can come up with all these these things that would have to happen.
What
was the commercial about? The commercial that used to just string a bunch of non sequiturs out. DirecTV.
Yeah, it was DirecTV.
That's a classic illustration. All those things are possible, and it's possible that all those things could happen right after one another and produce produce the absurd result of the commercial.
That's the joke.
That's the joke. Yeah. So possible doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Plausible is a much better way to approach things, and we don't do biblical exegesis trying to create possibilities by virtue of things the Scripture doesn't say. Exegesis is about understanding what it does say. So beyond that, I don't really know if that hits the question or not, because I didn't really understand the wording of the question. Let's see. Let's see. Matthew 7. Yeah, I'd have to go look at the passage. If they're not believers, well, then the answer is kind of self-evident there. But I'd have to go read through the passage to really know. I actually, believe it or not, folks, I actually don't have the Bible memorized.
You don't?
So no, I don't. So I'd have to go look things up. Oh, let's see, where in the world is it here? Okay, I never knew you. Well, that might be a clue. Yeah, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, do many mighty works in your name? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me. Let me look at the question again. Yeah. Believe it or not, there were people, again, who are completely divorced from biblical content, like New Testament content. And they were doing things like prophesying. I mean, Jews had prophets still in the first century, people they considered prophets. They had exorcists. Again, there's a pretty, I don't know if I'd call it large or, there's a good bit of material in Second Temple and Rabbinic Judaism about exorcism. So sure, in theory, people who had rejected the Messiah could have been out there preaching. That's what prophesying is. I mean, most of biblical prophecy is not predicting the future at all. it's preaching, it's covenant enforcement. That's a good way to think about the prophets. And they're trying to do exorcisms, and you know, maybe they do. Maybe they pull one off. You know, maybe the demon responds to the invocation of the name of the God of Israel. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't even a demon possession, and they thought it was. I mean, there's just too many variables to this. But cutting to the chase here, sure, you have people who have no relationship to the Messiah at all, doing these things that are mentioned in this passage. And so it's perfectly coherent for Jesus to say, I never knew you. You're not a follower of me. You're out there doing this stuff, but you're not one of mine. So again, I wouldn't have any problem with, saying that these are not true believers here. In fact, I would think that's probably the most straightforward reading of the passage. Do you think making the sign of the cross like Catholic Orthodox do has any spiritual power or not? I don't think making hand motions of any kind has spiritual power. I think if it reminds you that that God is your protector, that you're dependent on Him. Again, all things being equal, I still want to know if you understand the gospel or not at the end of the day. But let's say you do. Let's say you're somebody in either one of those things. And again, it is possible for a Catholic, for someone in Eastern Orthodoxy to be a genuine believer. They can have messed up theology in some other respect. Frankly, just like evangelicals. Evangelical theology is a mess in lots of places. I should say among lots of evangelicals. It's probably a better way to say that. But you could have someone grasp the gospel in its simplicity and clarity and be in one of these denominational settings, and again be led down either errant or unfruitful trajectories on theology, but they're still believers. And so if they making a particular sign gives them a reminder of their dependence on the Lord or their salvation, or I'm not saying this pejoratively or flippantly, but if it gives them a warm, fuzzy feeling, if it gives them, security, spiritual security in the right sort of way, well, then it has some effect. I don't think it has any inherent power. When I see the word power, I think like it actually does something supernatural, and I don't think that at all. But it can still be something spiritually beneficial, to a person to do that. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Steve, you'd have to come up with a verse. I couldn't, from your question, I can't pluck that out of my head in Proverbs or Psalms about that. Reason I ask is because it seems like they are, since they do works in God's name. Well, lots of people, televangelists do lots of things in God's name, and there are a bunch of them I don't think are believers either.
Televangelists?
Yeah.
The people like Brazzo.
Like who?
You don't know who have I never showed you this guy?
No.
Oh, it's this it's this guy who is a spiritual healer, right? But it's so funny. It's so funny. It's unintentionally funny.
Just like Todd Bentley, beating people with bats or punching them in the face.
Believe it or not, this is worse. He has
that is a little hard to
what
believe.
people call the gaze of miracles. So when he looks at people,
I can feel
healed, right?
I can feel my soul being crushed just a little bit.
It gets worse. It gets worse. Brazzo.
Oh, thanks for that.
Brazzo. Let me just get.
Is this like Madonna, where you only have one name, and everybody's supposed to know who you are?
Yeah, hold on. Let me do a dramatic zoom for this. Brazzo has these things you can pay for. There's sessions, right?
Of course, you can pay for them.
Where Brazzo charges people money to have Skype calls where all he does is stare at you.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You don't have to memorize anything then. It just. So yeah, lots of people who are charlatans do things in the Lord's name and they're not believers. So that doesn't really faze me. I don't see any contradiction there. Not that you were saying it was contradictory, but again, just to throw that out there. Oh, let's see. The acknowledgments in the portent say that the Fern character was based on a lady named Fern who passed away. I thought Fern from your podcast was the inspiration for the character in the book. Well, both of those things are actually simultaneously true. The Fern character in the book is based upon the living woman who works with dissociative, split personality patients. Her name, the real woman, is not Fern, but the character is based on her. But the name of the character is drawn from someone who was named Fern. And I'll just give you the story. So I was on Coast to Coast. This is while we were in Wisconsin. So it's probably late 90s, something like that. Early 2000s. I can't pinpoint the date, but I did a Coast to Coast AM show, and I got a phone call the next day. And there was a lady on the other end, and she said, I had to call you because when I heard your name on Coast to Coast, it really, kind of freaked her out because her last name was Heiser, but she spelled it differently. Their family and their extended family, going back generations, spelled it H-I-E. And it was actually an Ellis Island, mess up. But the Heisers there, and she was in Indianapolis, said, my husband just died. He had died a few days earlier, and his name was Mike Heiser. So she was listening to Coast AM and heard my name and just, felt that she had to call. Well, we chatted on the phone, and I said, hey, if we're ever passing through Indianapolis, we'll come and visit you. And we did have occasion to do that. One of our trips when we lived in Wisconsin, we would take the kids out to PA and drive back. And we stayed with Fern one evening. And she told me a story. I didn't put this in the book at all. But she said that after her husband died, after the funeral, and again, this was really close, to when she heard, the show and my name. She said she was at home and she was in her living room and she saw her husband appear in the living room, but he had no feet. And so he just sort of drifted over, kissed her on the cheek, and was gone. That was it. So it was sort of like this saying, goodbye kind of moment. And she just wanted me to know that. So, you can imagine seeing that, and then you turn on the radio and you listen to a show like Coast to Coast, and Mike Heiser is the guest. She just had to call. So she had read the facade. She went out and got it, and so I told her, I said, when there's a sequel, I'll name a character after you. Which I did, but unfortunately Fern passed away before the portent, actually came out. But that's the story. So both of those things are actually true. One is a namesake, and the other one is, someone who does the things the Fern character does in the book. 70 Bulls of Numbers 29. Yeah, that's a passage. I have a few articles on that. I'm still wondering about that. That would actually make a good sort of, I should write that down. That would make a good podcast episode, sort of an in-between
Hey, Dad.
episode. Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of the number 70, we're at 79 viewers.
Good. We picked up 9. They're all here to see Maury. I mean, just,
Well,
who can blame
we're
them?
scamming them then, because we're okay. You know what? Quick Maury cam. Dad, check this out. I made a transition just for Maury cam. Check this out. So right now you're seeing what they're seeing, right? All they see is you, right? Yeah. Check this out. Look at this epic transition.
This is going to be an epic. All right, I'm watching.
Oh wait, hold on. I forgot to make it bigger. Wait.
You forgot to make him big.
Yeah,
okay, now here we go.
Slowly.
Oh, you got the epic fade in. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
well,
he is. There's a pug.
Watch the cat jump up on the table now.
Jameson, you like that?
Yeah, Jameson is liking that.
Yeah, Micah sent me a Snapchat of Jameson freaking out to this episode.
Okay.
Wait,
So like whenever Maury is on TV, Jameson just freaks out.
One moment. We can make Jameson freak out even more.
All right.
And this is a first with MIQLAT live streams, okay?
Oh
We got a
yeah,
cat,
put the
too.
cat up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's
Oh.
gone.
No, he's gonna come over and just get in the way in some other way. Just trust me.
I mean, that's just what cats do.
It's
right?
what cats do.
That's
Yeah.
what cats do. When you want to see the cat, bam, there's a cat.
Someone asks, can salvation be lost? Okay, my position on this. Oh boy, what happened to my screen here? Not sure what that did there.
What's happening on your screen?
Okay, my position on this can be summed up in boy, I just don't know why that did that. That's weird. Let's see here. Man, look at all these questions in here that I have not seen because I couldn't scroll. Okay.
There's like a billion.
Yeah, the salvation question. You are eternally secure if you believe. If you do not believe, you are not. Okay, I want you to think about that statement and just let it sink in. Okay, here's another statement. That which cannot be gained, that which cannot be gained by moral perfection cannot be lost by moral imperfection. Those two statements are the answer to your question. A lot of people ask this question about losing salvation because they embrace the gospel, they believe in it, they understand it. Christ died for my sins. I cannot merit salvation on my own in any way. I can't redeem myself. I can't erase my sin. I can't be perfect. So we depend on the substitutionary death of Christ on our behalf, and we believe the gospel. We believe that what happened on the cross is what gives us forgiveness of sins and redeems us and gives us eternal life. So we believe that. Some people who believe that, they'll go off and they'll commit sin, or they'll fall into sin, or they'll stray from their faith or whatever. And then they'll wonder, did I lose my salvation? The answer is no. That which cannot be gained by moral perfection. You can't be morally perfect. You can't be perfect. Okay, works are not salvation, and even if there was a standard that if you were perfect, you could work your way and earn salvation, God would owe it to you. That's not possible anyway, but that isn't the point of the gospel. That which cannot be gained by moral perfection cannot be lost by moral imperfection. Now, salvation can be forfeited or rejected. It's up to you to believe. Okay, salvation.
What do you mean by forfeited?
That you just don't believe. You turn from it, you willingly reject it. There's a question on the other end of that question that says, well, can a person really do that? Maybe they didn't believe in to begin with, Oh, maybe they didn't. Okay, I don't really care. But, a lot of people argue about this. Well, if I prayed this prayer, if I said these words, then, I'm in. And even if I don't believe later, I'm still in because I prayed this prayer back in 1982 or whatever it was. You realize you're treating the faith like it's an incantation, like it's a spell. Okay, that is not the gospel. The scriptures talk about enduring in the faith. They talk about the obedience of faith. The book of Hebrews has warnings in it about going, sliding back into unbelief. What that means is if you reach the position where you reject the gospel, you no longer believe, you do not believe. Okay, we don't have unbelievers in heaven. Unbelievers do not have eternal life. So you can turn from the gospel. You can disbelieve. You can reject it. You can throw it out. But you can't sin it away because it has nothing to do with merit or moral perfection. At the end of the day, the question is, it doesn't matter what your history is. It doesn't matter what sins you've committed, post-profession. At the end of the day, what matters is, do you believe or not? That's the only question that matters. And, we're doing the book of Hebrews, and, we're going to hit Hebrews 6. I do not believe that if someone, returns from the gospel and then becomes someone who doesn't believe that they can't return back to their faith. I believe they certainly can come back to their faith. And we'll talk about why when we hit Hebrews 6. But the issue, again, as always, in both testaments, across the board, before the cross and after the cross, is do you believe or not?
Help.
This also has a peripheral relationship to a misunderstanding about election. The same people who say, well, I prayed a prayer back in 1982, so it doesn't really matter what I think now. I'm in. I'm good. No, you're not. Do you believe or not? Okay, what you did in 1982 doesn't amount to a hill of beans. God doesn't owe you anything because you mouthed a few words. The question he has for you is, do you believe? So if you believe, you are eternally secure. You are eternally secure if you believe. If you do not believe, you're not. You must believe. It's the only thing God asks. It is the only thing God asks, because the gospel is not performance oriented. Back to the election thing, the way people, nowadays, again, sort of look at this mystical prayers that they pray, and now we're good no matter what we think. That's like Old Testament, election. Well, the Israelites were in because they were elect. They were in the covenant. They were baptized. Reformed. And other Catholic groups. They were baptized. They're in. It's the sign of the covenant. Look, do you believe or not? You can't say about baptism or any church ritual what you can't say, you can't say about those things what you can't say about circumcision, because Colossians 2 links circumcision to baptism, for example. Circumcision didn't guarantee anybody's salvation. How do we know that, Mike? This thing called the exile. Most of the nation that was circumcised, they were in the covenant, went off and worshiped Baal and other gods. That's why we had an exile. So if you think that one act back when they were 8 days old, is what sealed them, then you got a bunch of Baal worshipers in heaven. I'm sorry, your theology is incorrect. We do not have worshipers of other gods, okay, ancient or modern, in heaven. The only question that matters is, do you believe, in the God of Israel in the Old Testament, and in the God of Israel crucified in Jesus Christ in the New Testament? Do you believe or not? So, parse what I just said there, however. But if you're worried, again, if you're worried about some performance, some sin, some slippage, again, that which cannot be obtained by moral perfection cannot be lost by moral imperfection. Do you believe or not? If you believe, you're eternally secure. If you don't, you're not. So, let's see here. Oh boy, I just don't know which way this scrolls here. All right, let's see here. Let's go back up and come back down. UW, somebody's laughing at UW. I'm not sure why, but I'll laugh with you. Let's see here.
By the way, just to clarify, I shouted help earlier because Armin was
clawing you.
He was like, what do you call it when a cat claws you but doesn't claw, just lightly slapping?
He's like a scratching post.
You
thought your leg was a scratching.
Yeah, but not
post?
actually scratching, just kind of slapping repeatedly. He was just doing that to my leg.
I don't know. I guess you call it. That's what cats do.
It's an assault. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, somebody asked what my fantasy football team is. The Pugnacious Pugs.
Remember that one time?
And we are 3-0.
Remember that, Dad? Remember that one time when it was Christmas? No, it was Christmas. It was leading up to Christmas. You're like, let's both make a fantasy league, and if you beat me, I'll give you $100. Yeah. And then I made the account, never looked at it again, somehow won. Yeah. That was great.
Oh my!
Like, what's this $100 for? I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, the Fantasy Baseball World Series in the Naked Bible League is this week, and I'm losing right now. The last time I looked, I was losing by 3 points to Derek Gilbert. So the Grumpy Cats, that's my team. I have 2 days to pull it out here, or we're going to lose to Gilbert's Ozark Ramblers.
It's time to drop the Grumpy Cat joke.
Yeah, well, maybe I need to have a Pug team next year, and I'll do better. But
Pugs never die. Grumpy Cat is temporary. Pugs are forever.
Oh, let's see here. Yeah, what about the judgment, lukewarm Christians? Okay, the judgment for sins, the judgment for the estrangement from God was taken care of at the cross. Okay, performance has nothing to do with the gospel. Zero, nada, zilch. Okay, judgment for Christians is about what we do in the service of the Lord. And the scripture, the same passage that talks about, when Paul talks about this in Corinthians, everyone, in a nutshell, everyone is going to see what they could have done and what they did, and there's going to be a sense of suffering loss. But the same passage says, every man will receive, a reward. So you're going to get something. It won't be what you could have gotten. So that's the judgment for believers. It is not about a judgment to determine if you get into heaven. Okay, we're not going to supplement the cross. It's a judgment that relates to, again, your status in the new earth, the rewards that you get for your service. Again, if that was linked to salvation, then salvation in some sense would be by works. But Scripture denies that in many, many places. So we can't conflate the two ideas, even though that's pretty common. Let's see here. Yeah, Liz on Romans 8:29. My best answer there is to go to my website drmsh.com. Type in the term, search for the term election. You'll get my series on election. So I really can't recapture that here because it has graphic illustrations that are not very pleasing to the eye, but I think they still make a good point. How is it possible to tell if a person is demonically possessed versus mentally ill? Again, I don't know how we would know that other than some, truly supernatural manifestation. Maybe an exorcism, a casting out, and then you never have the problem again. Well, that's a pretty good after the fact indication that it wasn't a true mental illness. We were dealing with something demonic there. So questions like that, it's really sort of an after the fact kind of diagnosis is the only way to really, nail that down. Way back, go ahead.
So I remember earlier when I was talking about that Brazzo guy.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear someone in a discussion about like demonic possession, I just, yeah, you sure it does happen,
He
right?
cured that over Skype too by staring at people.
Brazzo can cure anything
Or did
over
you have
Skype
to-
just by staring.
How much did he charge for that?
Too much. No, but have you ever seen any of those YouTube channels that are just dedicated to like these like demonic possession and exorcism videos that are very laughably fake, but like thousands of people believe it's real?
Thankfully, you never have.
Oh, it's so funny. Like the acting is so bad. Like Dad, we were throwing around the idea of like doing like a Mystery Science Theater thing where we just react to like really dumb things.
Wait, you're saying that's on the list?
Yeah. Show of hands in the chat. Who would like to see that?
Yeah, I would say that's on the list unless somebody was really harmed by the nonsense going on there. Oh, let's
Brazzo's
see
on the list
here.
for sure.
So way back, this is Clifford Jones Sr. You paid to have a special forensic examination done in Majestic 12. It was on certain Majestic documents. Has the same technique been done on authorship of the New Testament, especially John, letters of John, Hebrews, Revelation? Well, kind of, sort of, but no, not exactly. That's really an interesting question because of who did the analysis for me of the Majestic documents. For those who don't know, the Majestic documents were leaked documents that purport, to talk about the recovery of alien bodies from the Roswell crash and yada, 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 so on and so forth. They have a very sordid history. Almost everyone in the UFO community believes they are not authentic because of their checkered history. But there are some of the Majestic documents that have an authorship attribution. That is, they purport to be like government memos signed by FDR or Admiral Hillenkotter or somebody like that. So what I did was I took all of the ones that have an authorship attribution, and I went to a woman named Carol Chasky. Carol has her PhD in which way did it work? I guess her PhD is in like information science or forensic linguistics or something like that. She wrote her own software program as part of her PhD to do what she does. So she's a specialist in authorship attribution. She's been involved in probably hundreds now court cases where part of the evidentiary discovery will be like the defendant supposedly wrote this letter or claims he didn't write this letter. And so she will take that material, and since they have a known authorship claim, like the defendant here, she will take known samples of their writing, put it into the computer, reduce it to digital text, put it into her software program, and compare it to the unknown. And it doesn't look for things like vocabulary, because you could learn the vocabulary of a field or a person and fake that. It deals with things like the use of function words like conjunctions and prepositions. and punctuation, because we have patterns of these things that are unconscious. We don't think about how we use little function words like that, and syntax, word order, those sorts of things. So I asked Carol, if she would test the Majestic documents. I think we had, I don't know what it was, a dozen or so different authorship attributions. So I gathered knowns, had them, typed out, people helped out, and then she tested the knowns against the unknowns. And only one of the documents was genuine, according to her testing. And it was something fairly innocuous, no big claims in there. But her undergraduate degree is in Greek. And so we actually talked about if she could do some of the same kind of work in the field of Greek. And I'm trying to remember there was some obstacle to it, and it might have been just the digitization of a large enough corpus for her program to sort of sort out patterns. She could probably do it now, because that conversation is 10 years old. There's a lot that's been digitized that you'd have to keep it within the Hellenistic, the Koine, corpus. Is that a real language? Is it literary? I think she could do it if she assembled the data. A lot of it is not. Well, most of it, maybe all of it, is not in public domain, so there's a licensing issue there. That was an obstacle, as I recall. There are people in the field of New Testament that are into text corpus linguistics, not specifically authorship attribution. That's why I said kind of, sort of, but not quite. It's called stylometry. If you wanted to Google it, use Google Docs, or not Google Docs, but Google Scholar. Put in stylometry for like the pastoral epistles, or stylometry for the Pauline epistles. You're going to get a few results of, again, this kind of forensic linguistic examination of New Testament, disputed epistles. So that it does exist in the world of scholarship, but it's not completely the same sort of thing that I did. But it's there. I would call it kind of an arcane, subfield of New Testament studies, but there are people who are trying to approach the issue from that perspective. Rick Brannon, who we've had on the podcast before, Rick works with me in the same building at Logos. He does our Greek stuff. He's actually looked at some stylometry stuff. He might know if somebody's doing anything more recently. Wow, Unseen World says, "Wow, Mike, glad you don't work for the dark side." I'm not sure what that means, but
Maury mentally called the cat for one.
But I don't. Any clues when the New Testament shows? I don't understand the second question, Scott. Question about Genesis 3:16 to the women. Okay, what's the question? Let's see here. I tried to explain what the Majestic documents were. Again, the ones I could test, the ones that have a known authorship attribution, they are inauthentic by forensic linguistic analysis from an expert in the field, except for one, and again, it was innocuous. There's actually a paper, and it should be available for free. I think if you went up to my website, drmsh.com, and put in Majestic documents, you'd find it. If you put in Carol Chasky's last name, you would find it. That's Chaski. I took the results of that and went on Coast to Coast one night. And what Carol did was a first round of testing, and there are another couple rounds that she could do, but it would have cost about $1,500. I paid for the first round. I don't know. It was probably $1,000. I mean, because she deserves to get paid for what she does. We went up on Coast to Coast, and I had I think George was the host. I can't remember, but basically saying, we set up a PayPal thing, like if you want the Majestic documents tested, by all the means possible, Carol would do that, but it would cost $1,500. We raised a total of $20. There was one person that contributed to it. So that tells you very loudly that people are not interested in finding out the truth of these things. They just want to believe what they want to believe. So that was kind of a harsh lesson to learn, but a good lesson to learn. More mentally called the cat for, Maury psychically, telepathically called the cat over to stay warm.
It's now the last survivors, but I couldn't find another S, so I just used a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm not paying the cats is that I'm actually allergic to cats.
Steve Daly Shaver, I think that's a question answered in Unseen Realm, or again, maybe a journal article that I posted on the site. Is it true that a newly discovered papyrus proves Maury built the pyramids?
Yes.
As much as I'd like to.
Question. Do
As
you
much
want
as
to
I'd
ask
like that to be
Maury?
the case,
We
but
can ask
no.
Maury. Should I bring up Maury?
I don't
Cam?
think he's awake. I think he went to
Okay.
sleep now. With his buddy came over to keep him warm.
His buddy named Darman.
Yeah.
People always spell Maury's name wrong.
I just know there a lot of them are spelling it correct.
No. Almost all of them have spelled it wrong.
Well, it's Mori and a bunch of.
Well,
these.
yeah, but a lot of them are saying. Someone said More. No, that's the word more. It's not Maury. Some people did Maury, like Maurice.
But in fairness, we should have. Oh, you put an S on the survivors there.
Yeah.
In fairness, we should have spelled his name to begin with. Let's see here.
It's Moriarty.
Back to the pyramids thing. The papyrus that was getting news this week. I blogged this a couple days ago. Has actually been known for a while. I posted 2 journal articles on it, and it's important because it talks about getting the blocks up to the pyramid complex through digging water channels and floating them. Again, the ancient people are fully capable of doing this, so we don't need aliens, we don't need Nephilim. It's just that's just a bunch of nonsense, building the pyramids and whatnot. Oh, let's see. Is it okay if I post something that some might consider funny? Well,
Sure.
I guess if they consider funny, it's okay. If they don't consider it funny, then you play at your own risk. Feel the cat is getting no love. You just don't know how true that is.
These messages are like 20 minutes old. Not 20 minutes. They're like 5 minutes old.
Yeah, but that's the bottom of my feed. So
Is there a blue arrow?
There's a blue arrow.
Press it.
Press the blue
Every
arrow.
single time we go through this, there's a blue arrow. It'll take you to the very bottom.
Okay.
You're like
Well,
frozen in time.
That's weird that it just well, there was only like 3 or 4 more on there.
To be fair, chat's not super fast right now. Let me put this. We have 76 watching. We lost 3.
Let's
Why?
see here. Let's see. His name is Maury Povich. Oh, the pre-Adamic life. Boy, I feel like I just comment. In fact, I did just comment on that. Wasn't there a question about pre-Adamism and co-Adamism on the last live stream at Woods?
I kind of tuned out during that one.
Oh,
I spent all my time trying to do the audio stuff.
yeah. Boy.
And sipping on my Woods coffee drink. Thank you.
There's no conclusive scriptural proof for pre-Adamic. By pre-Adamic life, does that mean like any life, or does that mean human life? There's no conclusive, I'll assume it means human. There's no conclusive scriptural evidence for pre-Adamism. And really, if we use the word conclusive or clear, you'd have to say the same thing about co-Adamism. There are certain statements that could be read that way. Co-Adamism is actually better. I can't think of a single thing that would establish pre-Adamic humans. But there are passages that could be read to reinforce the idea of co-Adamic humans. But again, you have to read the passages that way. There's Genesis 4, there's evidence for that. Cain kills Abel, so now we've got 3 people according to the biblical story. Adam, Eve, and Cain. And Cain's like, oh, my punishment's too great to bear. If somebody, whoever finds me is going to kill me. And then God has to put a mark on him. And, well, who's he worried about? Who's he worried about? Then when he leaves, he goes and builds a city, like really all by himself. I mean, there are just things like that. And Genesis 4 has 2 of them that seem to assume that there are other people around. It doesn't say it, but again, you can read it that way. But I don't know any that really are useful for pre-Adamism. For instance, those 2 in Genesis 4, they sort of presume that there are other people around there, but they say nothing about when they got there. In other words, they provide no chronology. So how can you say they're pre-Adamic? You could say they're with Adam and Eve. They're at the same time, but I don't know of any passage that really puts forth or can be read with any coherence for pre-atomism. Again, co-atomism, you might be able to make that case. But that, I have a lot of this stuff on my website, so if you wanted more than that, you could just put co-atomism in there or pre-atomism, you'll find that the posts. Oh, let's see, we've got a last question here.
Last question.
Well, there's two here. Check
Only one,
out
you have to choose.
check out the pyramid block made from concrete on YouTube, not cut stone. Yeah, that's the Davidovitz theory. And Davidovitz, I think he's still alive. I'm not sure. But yeah, that theory's still around. There are problems with it because not every block that, has been looked at or tested, conforms to the concrete mixture idea. Some do, some don't. The limestone covering is certainly, cut the outer covering that's mostly gone now. And they still got to get that to the top. So it's kind of a mixed idea. I think it's interesting. That some of the pyramid could at least have been done that way. Go ahead.
I just want to give a shout out to user Chris and Wanda. They just subscribed a few days ago.
Oh, good. Sweet. Let's see here.
We're up to 77. Take that.
What was the other one
Someone's trying to.
how'd
hashtag
the interview with Holly go today? I thought it went well. I mean, we did an hour with her. The topic was what is the new apostolic reformation, and what's up with that, and part of it was how do we distinguish that from charismatics, Pentecostals, Vineyard, all this whole mix. Again, since it's kind of foreign territory to me, but I thought it went well. It should go up tomorrow. So I think Sunday at the latest. Let's see here.
Unseen World says, "Good stream, guys. Thanks very much." You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know how we could say. I'm considering the scripture in Job talking about the nations fell when Satan. No idea what scripture you're talking about with nations falling when Satan fell, because there weren't any nations. When Satan, if you're referring to the serpent, when the serpent shows up. Yeah, I need a verse. Nothing's ringing a bell there. Yeah, and Thomas Jackson brings up a good point. Why is the accuser have the improper name Hasatan, but the proper name? Again, that topic is covered thoroughly in Unseen Realm. It's also on my website, drmsh.com. Put Ha-Satan or the Satan as a phrase in the search, or you could put Satan Old Testament in there. So I'm not going to spend time here doing that, but I'm getting a little thrown by the improper name. There's nothing improper about it. The Old Testament, the Satan figure in Job 1 is Ha-Satan. It's definite article plus noun. And Hebrew is just like English. It doesn't tolerate a definite article before a proper personal noun. So we do not have Satan, the devil, in Job 1 and 2. By rule of Hebrew grammar, we have the adversary. That's what Ha-Satan means. You don't get the identification you don't get the use of the term Satan in any form with the character of the serpent from Genesis 3 in the Old Testament at all. It never happens. The identification is never made. It occurs in the Second Temple period, certainly occurs in the New Testament. Again, I discussed this in Unseen Realm and also on the website. So, yeah, you need to look that up for more. We're a little over an hour now, so we need to get going. Let me just click that one thing.
I
here.
think we should end the stream how we began it. Just
There was
2 minutes of uncut more.
Right. There's this note. There was a pride issue with Satan thinking Adam and Eve were not worthy imagers, that it was a job for the sons of God and not humans. I'm not sure what that means.
Bit of a speculative question.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not. What was a job? What's the job being referred to?
I don't know, to represent God.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I just don't get. I don't get the question. What's your opinion of Larry Hurtado? He's a nice guy. I've spent, several, I've had breakfast and other, lunch and whatever with Larry at SBL and whatnot. He's been real supportive of my dissertation, even though he disagrees with, a point or two of it. I think he's a good scholar for early Christology. My disagreement with Larry, and I'm not unique here. There are a number of scholars that disagree with Larry. Larry thinks that the worship of Jesus, this is his term for it, was a mutation. In other words, it was a new thing that sort of it was an innovation. It was an innovation in the New Testament period, and he argues that because he only sees a deity figure where there is worship. In other words, he emphasizes cult. He defines worship as the presence of cult, which in academic language means there are rituals performed for that deity. There's some kind of, again, ritual event, prayers offered to that deity, so on and so forth. There are a number of scholars that think that's too narrow of a definition of worship, and I'm one of them. So if you widen the net a little bit, it's not so much an innovation. You get more continuity with the worship of Jesus and early like second power figures. So that's our disagreement. But I like Larry. Larry, I don't know where he's at, like in confessional terms, but his heritage is evangelicalism, and I think again he's a good scholar, so you would benefit, by reading what he does, what his work is. But we have that little. It's not an insignificant disagreement, but it's not something that makes us adversarial toward each other in any way. Yeah, go ahead.
So before we end the stream, I just have 2 comments I want to read. First, from Inquisitor, all over caps.
Okay.
Thou shalt not have any other pugs before me, Saint Maury.
Good grief.
And then, from Vic Shannon, is Maury an Elvis fan? I think I saw them hanging together once. Yeah.
Oh,
They
man.
actually were.
Well, that's a frightening thought. Okay.
Do you think Maury looks like
Well,
Elvis?
my voice is going, so we're gonna cut out. But yeah, we're a little over an hour, so a little longer than usual. But again, remember the contest to enter the contest. Calvin, you might want to repeat it real quickly
All right.
at the end here.
To be entered into the book giveaway, leave a review of Unseen Realm on Amazon or edit an existing review to update the timestamp. Then take a screenshot or picture of that and email it to calvinheiser@gmail.com. calvinheiser@gmail.com. Calvin Heiser being all lowercase. And then email us the picture along with your mailing address. Books will be signed by Michael Heiser and the Pug, maybe me, but probably not. The deadline for doing this is October 3rd, and the winners will be announced live on stream on October 6th. 2 from me, 2 from Dad, and 2 from Maury.
Yep.
Or if you want, all of them by Maury.
So we're not throwing Armin into this.
No, all of them by Maury.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for watching and listening, everybody.
And now I think it's only fitting that the stream ends the same way it begins, just Maury. So.
Oh, this is the big fade.
Let me just. Yeah, it's a big fade. No. We gotta set up the big fade, okay? Here's how it's gonna go. So, super close up on Maury, right? See the screen? We're gonna make a new transition. and this is gonna just be.
You gotta make it larger.
Bam. It's a fade. So now we're just gonna put Maury front and center.